Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of VisionCast. I'm Tauseef Muhammad, your host, and today we have an exciting topic, which is actually revolutionizing, the business, how we are working. What is the cutting edge way of transformation and creating a business impact? To talk about that, what is the power of that? And the topic we're going to cover today is in intelligence process automation, which is actually the talk of the town in terms of how the process efficiency, the productivity and the customer experience is impacting the entire business. And today, we have an expert here who is being living, breathing into this space. Abhishek, welcome. Abhishek, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Tausif. I hope you're
Okay.
doing great. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Abhishek, why don't you just, we'll just get right into it. But can you just talk about, that for our, audience, we have a very vast audience, but I just want to start, with a very basic. What is IPA?
Let me start with the full form, correct? So IP is Intelligent Process Automation. So if you go back a little bit in history, we used to have something called RPA, which is Robotic Process Automation, which is nowadays we call it Classical RPA.
Mhm.
So what we used to do is we used to automate process. That means we used to automate SOPs. We used to automate instructions, steps. But those are content which
Okay.
we used to automate. Now, what we are trying to do is bringing context into it. That
Okay.
is meaning of it. So, just not do the automation with the steps, rather bring the meaning, bring the intelligence, and do the automation. So you can expand your horizon and you can
Mhm.
automate more stuff, which is more useful to the people on the ground because typically humans do intelligent work. You
Okay.
can automate more and you can help them out.
I see. So, if I understand correctly, Abhishek, that this, that the automation normally now, with the AI buzz and all those things are happening. So, automations normally happen, on the machine, we try to, make machine more intelligent. So, is this work, require machine to be more intelligent or people to be more intelligent to work on this automation process?
Rather, I would say this is actually enabling people to do more intelligent work and keeping robot out of their work. Correct. So, as part of your activity, daily activity, you do certain things which can be translated into instruction with little bit of intelligence. And what IP is doing is helping you to execute those stuff without your involvement. Maybe very minimal involvement where you just go and verify it, but you are not doing that work actually. So you can take one example. So let's say a very basic example where you are onboarding people. Correct. We do onboard people everywhere, all company. And what do we do in onboarding people? You typically ask for documents from people that okay, you send me your driving license, you give me your certificates and etc. And I will put it into my system.
Okay.
And then I process it and I onboard you. What typically happens? There is a human who is sitting there reading those documents, maybe downloading from an email attachment and doing that. This may not be a very intelligent as well as interesting work for the human who is doing that. So
Mhm.
what IP is coming here is automating everything,
Okay.
downloading that document, scanning that document, extracting correct information, putting it into your onboarding system. Done. 5 minutes job instead of one person sitting there doing it for 2 hours. The person what he is or she is doing is just verification if needed. If so, that's what the benefit is. That okay, you are eliminating the redundant boring job from a human workforce and allowing them to do much better job, which is more contextual.
So it's making enhancing the accuracy and most importantly, improving the customer experience.
Exactly. So the exact example what I said. So there are two, three things happening when you're doing this, correct? First is productivity. Definitely you are increasing productivity significantly. Two
Okay.
hours job coming down to 5 minutes. One thing. Second thing is increasing accuracy, reducing errors. That
Okay.
means that particular human sitting there thinking about something else and doing some mistake entering data, that's not going to happen because machine don't think. Machine
Okay.
just execute. Correct. So that way, increasing productivity, reducing error, as well as one of the most important thing what happens is it increase end user satisfaction both way,
Hmm.
the consumer and who are the producer. Here in the person who is doing this, he is happy, he or she is happy that okay, I'm not doing this boarding job, I'm doing something else which is much better for me, correct? And even the consumer who is sending the documents, they are happy because there are less number of queries going there because it is getting extracted easily.
I see. Okay, so this is a very interesting fact, Abhishek, you mentioned about the machine. Just recently, just read this line about the forester, which they're talking about the volume of complex and routine decisions, that machine is going to execute is gonna grow like about more than like 50% between it was actually last year's study, and then it's already happening. So how the companies are adapting it, how they're putting this into part of their journey, what are the challenges that companies are facing to adopt this thing? It was so relevant and so important.
Yeah, so see, there are two key challenges here. When see adaptation happening a lot on the things which are more operational in nature, very instructional and straightforward. Now there are two parts. One is building this. I'm building a bot, which we call it bot, which is going to get executed on the ground. Building is one part. Second part is consuming that bot. That means end users who are using that.
Okay.
Correct. So I'm building something. Any process having exceptions. Correct. No, there is no process which follow only one path. There is always exception. And now the end users, who are the consumer of this bot, need to accept these as their co-worker and work with them. Then only this is successful. If they don't do, what is happening in most of the scenarios is okay, you are giving them the bot, and what you are hearing from them is okay, they can do only one step or one scenario, two scenario. I'm spending a lot of time managing exceptions, so I'm not going to use this.
Mhm.
Correct. So that's where the adaptation challenge is. So what we do when we go through any IPA engagement, there is a strong need of user education, correct? User training. So whoever the consumer of this bot, they need to get trained. It is not only developing this technologically, but as well as training those end users so that they can adapt it easily and execute it.
I
So
see.
that's a challenge on the consumer side. Another challenge on the technology side is I spoke about content and context, correct? So that context, bringing that context. So there are still technologies which are evolving.
Mhm.
Let's say you are reading handwriting, correct? There are many forms where there's a hand signature and this, that. We're still not 100% accuracy on those handwriting things. So
Mhm.
let's say in a workflow, when you have those kind of things, you are not 100%, you are 95% accurate. And the end user is not ready to take 95% accuracy. They always look for 100% accuracy. So these two are key areas which there is a continuous journey, I would say, to make this adaptation more higher. Correct.
Mhm.
You correctly said that this market is a growing market. Last year it was around $13 billion market, and
Okay.
expected to grow to around $53 billion in next 10 years with a CAGR of around 13.5 or 13.9. Correct. So that means adaptation is happening. People are using it, but there are challenges which people like us are solving on the ground. That okay, end user training on the one side, another side is solving the technology to make it more accurate.
So this is let me just go a little bit deeper into this thing, peeling the onion here. So I know this new the automations projects involve this process involve some cognitive tools that conversational AI or some anomaly detections and stuff like that. So if I just want to ask you very straightforward, so what is this advancement of AI machine learning, and how this is in scaling the IPA capabilities. So what
Significant,
is the impact here?
significantly.
Okay,
So I think you have heard of this new buzzword, correct? Generative AI.
generative AI. Yep.
Yeah, so what generative AI is doing? Generative AI is bringing a very unique concept where it is called prompt engineering. That means if you are able to prompt correctly, you are able to get your work done easily. Let's say you are building a you are writing a story, just writing a story, correct? Which is typically not a use case where you can do automation. correct? It is the intelligent stuff where your intellect come in to write that story. Now, what generative AI is doing is, if you're able to prompt it correctly that what you need, it will generate you the story. Then you can modify it, correct? And I'm not talking about literary work. I'm talking about in general stuff like technical stories and all what you keep developing. Now, what is happening? Now, think about IPA plus generative AI. How this is solving bigger gamut,
Okay.
correct? What IPA is doing, taking you through the flow, okay?
Okay.
And IPA is able to help you to create that prompt also. That okay, there are certain prompts, and now using that prompt, you are passing that prompt to generative AI, which is giving you that story, okay? And then you are taking that story back to end user. So that means you are able to cover much bigger gamut, correct? Not only process as well as activity you are automating, okay?
Okay. Which industries, like, being the, I'm sure you work with multiple industries and verticals. Which is the most prominent industry adopting this and getting benefit out of it?
So typically insurance, BFS, retail, pharma. These are the industries where you see a big adaptation of IPA as well as this generative AI as a concept. It's pretty new concept, correct? So they're part of AI, which is deep learning, machine learning, NLP, which is in use for long. It is not new stuff. It is being in use for last, maybe I would say 5-10 years, whenever the concept of IDP came in, that is intelligent document processing, which is subject of IPA, where you are scanning the documents. How you are scanning the document is using models. Where you are scanning the documents, typically when you are claiming on insurance, when you are processing invoices, when you are processing loan forms. So these are typical areas where there is a significant use of it. Okay. Now, when we are going to the next level, okay, now I have processed one document. Now I need to reply back to end user that, okay, I have processed your claim and these are the things. Again, that generation of email is getting generated by generative AI. Okay, that used to be written by a human. That okay, I'm writing an English statement and producing something. That is also now getting solved by generative AI if I am able to prompt it correctly with certain data points.
Okay.
Recently, I think Google has also worked on it. Is getting integrated to kind Gmail kind of things, where you can prompt to generate that entire email. You don't need to write it, correct? So these kind of things are getting integrated, and across the industry, as I said, insurance, BFS, retail, pharma, sciences, these are areas mostly using it.
I see. So that's very interesting. So how, like, that in a typical journey of any organization, when they are looking into this thing, so it's more like, that anytime that you get an engagement with the organization, either they have an IT problem or they have a business problems. So business problems, like, more towards, like, what is, would be the outcome driven solutions that can impact their, like, thing. So where this conversation normally starts, and what is a typical journey of engagement, like, that how you deal with different industry or customers?
Absolutely. See, it is about solution, not about technology, correct? So we are not just implementing technology, rather we are building a solution for them. So where it starts is, we call this as discovery. Okay,
Okay.
discovering what's your situation right now. Okay, what do you need? Do you really need automation? If you need automation, what are the different components? You may not need automation, you may need a app dev, correct? But that's what the discovery is all about. You are going and talking to end user who are actually executing those stuff on the ground, understanding their challenges, understanding their volume, understanding what they're doing activities, understanding exceptions and happy path.
Oh,
And when you do all these things, what happens is you jot it down, all the details, each and every process, jot it down, the flow, entire flow, and then figure out, is this a automation scenario? 100% no. It might be a 50% automation scenario, 50% something else, which might be app dev, or it might be a concept called human in loop. What is human in loop? That is automation and human working together. Automation is doing 50% of the job, then giving it back to human, and that human is taking over, doing that rest of 50%, giving it back to automation. So that's human in a loop, correct? Is it a human in a loop? Is it a app dev, or it is complete automation? If it is complete automation, Then comes two factor. One is what is the complexity of automation and what's my ROI. Okay.
Oh,
ROI is a very key element to it. Technically implementable, yes, many places, correct. But if I implement technically, there is a cost to it, correct. That cost, and the cost what I'm spending right now. So let's say my operations are outsourced to a country where billing rates are really low, let's say $8, $9 per hour. It is
okay.
very difficult to automate and gain anything out of it. If I'm automating something which is a higher value chain where I'm spending more, then ROI become easier. So all these things comes together and what we call as automation score, correct? And automation score drives your automation roadmap. That okay, if I implement these things in this sequence, this is the ROI, and this is when you are going to break even. Let's say 1 year journey, 2 year journey, 3 year journey. And it is all based on what they need as part of their business. It is not what we want to implement as a technology, correct. It
Okay.
When we are implementing IPA, there are multiple technologies coming together, correct. One example I can tell you, uh, I was talking to one client one day, and the client statement was, see, I have a aging population in my sales workforce. Okay, when I say aging population, that means they are going to retire in a year or two, but they are working with me for last 30 years.
Okay.
They have all the knowledge and everything, and what they do is they interpret client need and put it in my CRM system before I can manufacture. So they're a manufacturing company. How do I solve this? So this is the problem statement from client, correct. This is not even an automation problem statement. There is a business need on the ground. So when I start deciphering that, what happens there is there is a component of technology, component of business, correct. What does it mean? That okay, what exactly your sales guys are doing? What
Okay.
they're doing is they are going back to end client. End client is just saying that okay, I need two switch boxes. That's what they're writing in an email. And these guys interpreting that, because I know the client, switch box means this is the brand, this is the number of units, and this is the size what they need. They know all these things in their brain. Nothing, it is nothing documented anywhere.
Mhm.
Okay. So when we are solving this thing, correct? So there are different parts to it. One part is how do you capture that knowledge of the sales guys? That means you need to build an interface through which the sales guys' knowledge will be captured. Then there is a layer of GraphDB where you will store all these things.
Okay.
Then there is a layer of Azure logic to flow them through. And then there is a layer of small layer of RPA, which is actually taking this knowledge and putting in the CRM system.
Okay.
So multiple components as well as end user training to make this a solution end to end, which we call a IPA solution. Correct? It
Okay.
is not that one technology you just go and implement it.
You have to have a so okay, one question, like this is a very great example, and there's like always like something that if like you look at IPA, then there's always word comes as in RPA, Robert's process. Is it RPA is part of IPA, or what is like how you differentiate those two things together?
Yes. So RPA is something which used to be used for all the process workflow automation. Okay.
Oh,
Which is typically very standardized SOP, and there are clear instructions which can be accounted for. Now, what happened over the period of time? These models came in, machine learning model, deep learning model, which started putting context to it. For example, let's say I'm scanning one invoice, okay, and there is a number. Let's say it is written 1500 number. Now, when I'm reading that number, what is that number? Is it a zip code? Is it a invoice amount? Or is it something else? Correct?
mhm.
How do you figure that out? It is not only content. Content is 1500, but context is it is a dollar amount. So that context is coming from a model which can decipher that this means a dollar amount, this is not something else. Correct? Those kind of concepts started coming in. That means what you're doing is with a simple workflow, you are adding to context using models, using customized models, using deep learning. Again, you have started reading emails using NLP. Correct? All these components coming together. So that's when RPA become IPA. Correct?
Okay.
It is not only simple workflow automation, rather it is actually bringing all the contextual stuff into one place to make it a complete solution. Correct?
I see.
And what is happening today is all the RPA vendors are also going through evaluation, and now they are also IPA companies. Their products actually bringing all these things together. You call it UiPath, Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, all the market leaders, correct? They are bringing components which can do all these things. They call it AI Fabric, Decipher, document understanding, multiple components which they're combining together to make it IPA. So in market, you will hear both the terms. People use RPA, but when they're saying RPA in today's context, it is IPA because
I
all these things are coming together.
I want to ask one more question, Abhishek, which is actually how's your, like, that the typical engagement, like, when, if you can just very briefly talk about, like, how this your typical engagement looks like with the customers uh, when they approach you, and what is the time frame of, like, any given problem statement to get to, like, see the business outcome of it.
Absolutely. So again, it starts from initial discovery that okay, this is what we can do, and what is your business problem. That's where it starts, correct? And then what happens is we do a quick discovery. There's something called pilot discovery, correct? So there are two parts to it: pilot and actual execution. What is pilot discovery? When you're discovering, let's say you discover that okay, there are around 20 to 25 process what you can automate, and there is a roadmap. And then what do you do? Because the client whom you're talking to, they have never implemented this, so they don't know what is the outcome, what they're expecting. This is not a Java code, correct? So that everybody knows. So we pick up two or three items which are pretty prominent items, having a very clear outcome and easy to implement, correct? So we don't start with something which is complex to implement. And when we do that, what happens is you start implementing those as a pilot. And typically pilots are 1 month to 1.5 months project, where you deliver these things as a pilot and the end user starts using it, so that their leadership has a visibility that okay, I have implemented a bot and it is working for me and I'm getting benefit out of it. And once that benefit is in place, that drives rest of the roadmap. And rest of the roadmap can go on for 2 years, 3 years, depends on the longer roadmap you have.
The roadmap.
But it
Okay.
starts with a pilot which proves the concept. You call it pilot or POC, either way.
And then, like, it just grow, like, once, like, you just try and identify those use cases, and just taking a step one step at a time, like, to automate those, creating a business impact, and then scale it up the operation.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, good. So I'm sure, like, that with my audience, like, if someone wants to reach out to you to run the pilot, do you, like, help, like, with this, doing a free assessments on the pilots with the normal company?
Absolutely. As part of our offering, that's one of the key offering that we do, that initial discovery free of cost, which is covering their pilot thing, and then we give you the roadmap that okay, what pilot you can do, give you a very real picture. Means that's one part of it, that okay, I want to be as real as possible because this is a pretty advanced technology, and there is no false commitment here that okay, I can do magic. There is no magic. There is a
And
real.
good thing, Abhishek. Like, I know that the companies, like, wants to just engage with you first, like, wants, like, them to just get the services in, and then they will come and, like, talk to you about your problem. But I'm, like, good to hear, like, that you guys actually do it, rather, like, just free of cost, doing the pilot, working with them. I think that will major differentiation, I would say, like, from your side. So awesome. Again, Abhishek, we are, like, it's a very good conversation. I think we have learned a lot, but I just want to give you one more, like, this thing, like, do you want to have, like, some certain last word, if you're going to say where this technology is heading and how it's going to impact in next 5 to 10 years with the growth of chat GPT and Gen AIs of the world, how you see that is heading in next 5 years?
Yeah, so I was touching that point a few minutes back, that when generative AI is coming, what it is doing is it is actually automating your activities also. Okay,
Mhm.
so what we used to automate is the process. Now we are also able to automate your activity. If you
Activity.
just join these two together, you can see the enormous opportunity it has and where it is going. Be it at least we used to think that okay, intellectual stuff human will be doing. Now that is also gone. Correct. So that is also being taken over by Gen AI. And
Yeah.
what if you remember, we used to we used to learn how to write Prezi writing, correct? So,
Oh, yeah.
how to explain. Correct. If you can just do that, then rest is being taken care by Gen AI. Right?
Absolutely.
So what we are thinking on the line that, okay, how do I make IPA to bridge that gap? That, okay, you prompt it and Gen AI do the rest of it, then
Yeah.
everything is done. We are
Okay.
free. Correct. So that's the opportunity. What you see in front, and that's a huge opportunity. What you see in front.
I'm sure you are like, putting that's part of your offering, that like, that this is Gen AI is also in a mix.
Absolutely, there is no other way. You
There's
cannot.
no.
You can, yeah, that's the only
Absolutely.
way. What you have. Yeah.
Absolutely. Again, looking forward to some amazing work, like, from your side. And I think it's a very good conversation. And I'm sure, like, that if people wants to learn more about this thing, like, Abhishek, like, what is the best way, like, do you have all the information on your website, or someone wants to reach out to you? What is the best way if they want to connect with you?
Yes, yes. So we have a website as part of Visionet corporate website where you have all the details, and there is a query form also where through which you guys can connect us. There is an email ID also, which is where they can send queries, and then we'll respond back and then engage the correct contextual person to get it going.
Awesome. Good. Abhishek, thank you very much again. It was a very robotic conversation, I would say, like, making it more automated. So great. Thank you. I'm sure, like, our audience enjoyed it. So back to my audience. Again, if you have any question, guys, like, for Abhishek, please do, like, send this notes. You can always search him, like, he's been all and about in automation. So he's in-house expert of, like, making things happen. So thank you again, like, for joining with us today, and looking forward for next amazing episode. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone. Thanks, Joseph.